Just step. Happy Thanksgiving to London Pro Musical Choir. This is Marcus Howard, your artistic director, and I am so thrilled in this 50th anniversary season to be welcoming back into the family, into your homes today, this weekend, the incredible Dr. Vicki St. Pierre. Vicki, how are you?
I'm great. Hello, London Pro Musica, and hello, Marcus. Thank you for having me all the way from Sackville, New Brunswick.
Yes, yeah, I'm so thrilled that you agreed to do this with us, Vicki. I'm such a fan of yours as a conductor, and of course, this year is our 28th anniversary being
Wow.
friends and colleads, eh? So,
That's impossible because I'm only 28.
yes.
So yeah, I don't. Nope, sorry.
That's what the choir said you'd say. So there we are.
Ah,
It's true, it's true. So, Vicky, we haven't spoken in a long time just because life has taken so many different directions since this COVID thing's been happening. Can you tell us what you've been up to specifically in the last couple of months that people may not know?
so our Dean of Arts, we have an interim Dean of Arts at Mount Allison that was only there for one term, and a search wasn't started. So he decided to step down, and I put my name forward to be the interim Dean of Arts for this year, and I got the job. And so I have been leading the Faculty of Arts at Mount Allison through this COVID fun time. And it's quite an interesting job. I mean, I've done a lot of administrative work outside of academia, and this was a really good opportunity to see what inside academia administrative work looks like. And fortunately, a new provost came on at the same time as I started my work, and he's fantastic. So he's made my job more fun, way easier. It's a real collegial atmosphere, and obviously learning a ton, and having a really great time. It's a very different kind of leadership, but I'm still the same type of leader as I would have been in front of London Pro Musica or in front of any group that you work with. So it's taking your skill set as a choral conductor and just sort of pivoting slightly, which is kind of what this whole time is about, isn't it?
It truly is, truly is. And as someone who has been lifted up by you and sees you lifting up so many people, I think that faculty is so lucky to have you in that position for however long you may be sitting in that chair there. So that's exciting news for you for sure, and for
Thank
all
you.
of those students there. So a lot of our singers are new this year, and some people who may be watching this on our YouTube channel may not be familiar with your time during the choir. Can you just remind us of what your years were, how many years you were with Pro Musica?
Yeah, I can't remember the starting year, to be perfectly honest with you, but I do know I came in right after Ken Fleet. There was a year of sort of auditions where guest conductors were asked to come in and conduct a concert. So Liz Van Dorn got on the phone to me in Toronto and asked if I would guest conduct at one of the concerts. And at that point, it wasn't in my head to apply for the job of London Pro Musica. At that point, I was just going to guest conduct a great choir and would see what would happen. Sure enough, I got to know the choir, and I thought, yeah, I mean, I would love to work with this group. So I put my name in the hat, and then they selected me, and I spent, is it 4 or 5 years? I think 4 years plus 1 year of coming back to do some concerts while they selected a new artistic director. So I did work until 2015. I did the 2015-2016 season, and but I came back, and Rod Cullum helped prepare the concerts, and it was a group effort, and the choir was really flexible and really wonderful about learning their music really well, and so I came in to do those concerts as they were selecting a new artistic director.
That's incredible. So before we talk more about your time with the choir, can you also share with those of us who don't know the rest of your portfolio, which is quite extensive? What else do you do, Miss Vicky? Are you anything else on your plate there?
I mean, I sing professionally, and mostly it's early music, and I do some conducting, and my sabbatical, which has been approved. Whether or not it gets deferred, I don't know yet, but it's been approved for next year. Is going to be with the Portland Baroque Orchestra, conducting a couple of concerts with them, which is, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. They're just fantastic group, and I worked with them in February. In fact, was that the last concert I did? It was the last concert I did before COVID hit. And I flew back in, and I was to do a Bach B minor mass in Halifax. And the week before we started rehearsals, everything shut down. So I sing. I'm a contralto. And Marcus and I actually met at school. We had a couple of years at Western together. And few.
A couple, 2, 3, I don't even remember.
I don't, it's too far.
Yeah.
too long ago. And from there I did my bachelor's, and I did my master's, and then I sort of took 10 years off in between and tried to have a singing career, which was, fairly successful. And I ended up learning how to conduct, as it turns out, sort of trial by fire with a United Church in New Hamburg, and they were wonderful, and we really built the program, and I learned a lot about conducting, and worked with Opera Italia as an assistant conductor an awful lot, and then I worked at St. James Cathedral and got the job as director of music. Marcus, God love his amazing ability to jump in and just do anything, not only did a lot of subbing for me and conducted the choir just magnificently, but also there was the year that you did the Apocalypsis, that giant work by Murray Schafer, and I just heard time and time again that the only person that anybody could follow was you. There were choirs all over the place who had their own directors conducting them, and all they could do was try to find you in the balcony somewhere and watch you. So thank God that was you doing that.
Well,
I don't think I could have done it.
No, I've met a lot of choristers that way. People who will go, "Hey, you're the guy who can conduct in 5." So, yeah. And I'm so grateful. And that's another example of what I was saying about you always lifting people around you up. You are definitely a person who is, whether or not you assume that role, acknowledge it. You're a mentor to a lot of people that you've come in contact, and that's an opportunity that I'm so grateful that you afforded me. So thank you so much for that. So.
Oh, and I just want to, I want to point out too that the work that you do with Guelph, especially with some of the youth choirs that you work with, it's the same. You do the same thing, and it's so amazing for me to see on social media and in concerts the joy that you bring to those choirs and the level at which that they sing. So, as much as I would love to sound magnanimous, it purely was selfish in that if I was going to go somewhere, I wanted the very best person to do this, and someone who was better than me, if possible, and you came in and always blew everybody away. So I'm very thankful, and I know that we love working together, and that's been built over 28 years.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So Vicki, you just wear so many different hats, and I always wonder how each of these parts of your life, parts of your artistic career, feed each other. Some people would say, well, a choral background doesn't go hand in hand with a professional soloist's career. Can you talk about how each has influenced the different parts of your life and career?
Sure. There are sort of two parts to this. One is in my undergrad, where my teacher quite wisely said, I think after my third year, you have to choose between doing a whole lot of choirs and trying to develop that solo voice. And there is a difference. It's not necessarily in production as much as it is in tone, color, and quality, and a freedom that you don't necessarily always have in choral singing. That's not true in all choirs. Certainly, there are a lot of choirs that ask for tonal freedom from their singers, and of course, those are my big things with my ask of choirs, and I know that's the same thing for you. And so that was a wise decision. And so when I finally sort of settled into my choral voice, I was then able to make a transition quite easily easily back and forth between, I don't want to call them two voices, but between tone colors that I might need to use. As an alto, that's a lot easier, I think, than a soprano, to be perfectly honest. Because even if I sort of break out my soloistic voice in a choral setting, it's the alto part. And generally, you kind of want to hear more of the alto part anyway, as a general note.
As the alto.
That's right, as the alto, of course. Now, I do want to just recall a moment in the 1992 Ontario Youth Choir where Christina Szabo, Matt White, me, Joanne Cole, and there were others that I'm just forgetting off the top of my head in the alto section, and Lydia Adams was our conductor. And I have never heard so many times in rehearsals, altos, shut up. That's all I can hear is the alto part. It was wonderful. I mean, it was something to celebrate for sure. Now let me get back to my point. So it was good, very wise of my teacher to have me step aside for a while to really start to develop a solo voice. But having said that, my most fulfilling work is probably small ensemble solo singing. I find it that tight-knit, working with others, adjusting on microscopic levels, and creating something that is way bigger than the sum of its parts is so exciting. So every bit of choral background that I have, of conducting that I have, every bit of my solo career and my work with ensembles, or my work standing in front of an orchestra in front of a couple thousand people, even my work in academia, all of that informs how I'm performing or how I'm teaching, what I learn from each gig that I do, or each choir that I conduct, or each class that I teach. Everything is woven. It's such an interdisciplinary program that we live in, and if one doesn't inform the other, I think you're depriving yourself of really interesting information and of allowing people to mentor you and mentoring other people as you just sort of move through. And going from the baby soloist in my first few and watching some of these experienced soloists and thinking, that's what I'm missing. I'm missing that dramatic breath, or, oh, I've never heard anybody use that phrase in that way. That's brilliant. I need to be thinking more clearly about how my phrasing works. And now being the older of the soloists sometimes on some of these gigs and looking at these young kids and looking at the enthusiasm and the fresh eyes on some repertoire that sometimes it could get stale if you let it. It all informs each other, and it means that I don't have to go far to wear the different hats, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I love the way that you care for your ensembles always. And you, again, have your finger in a whole bunch of different pots, professionals, academia, and community ensembles. Mm-hmm. And you've led, and I'm sure there are other categories that I'm just forgetting right now. Do you care for your choirs in different ways? How do you attend to these different types of choirs?
Yeah, I think understanding who you're working with, what their expectations are, what your expectations are, and then trying to take everything up a level. So, but within reason, always reasonable goals, achievable goals. And so, I mean, I guess in a way, yes, in that I cater to what we're working together to do. And that could be different with all sorts of different ensembles. But no, in that I just, what I really like to do is listen to what I have and help them to be better. And just raise the level of discourse. Maybe not even just the music or the singing, like in a choir, for instance, but their attitude about rehearsals and their attitude toward one another and lifting each other up instead of, sometimes we get in chorals groups, you get those people who are picking on the person next to them, and it's that, maybe you take the log out of your own eye first. And yeah. So it's that type of of changing that kind of discourse as well, if you can, and mostly that's modeling more than anything else. But I do work with most of my groups that way. I certainly work with my classes at Mount Allison in that way, and make sure that they have the information I think they need to be better.
That's incredible. Now, you've referenced two people that I want to touch on. You mentioned the incredible Lydia Adams, who is the current conductor of the Elmerizer Singers, and you spoke of your teacher, your private voice teacher. Do you have mentors in your career that you would like to champion and let us know about? Who have those people been?
So as far as teaching, anything vocal pedagogy, anything leading in academia, mentoring in any kind of academic way, or lifting students up, is Dr. Daryl Edwards at the University of Toronto. He was my teacher from my second year of my bachelor's degree through to the end of my doctoral degree.
Wow.
I've never had another teacher other than my first year at Western. We won't go there. It didn't work for me, so that's fine. But Daryl did, and we haven't always completely agreed on everything, and that's okay. It's wonderful to have discussions, and his desire to allow students to find a path and to be better, to grow as singers, as musicians, as colleagues. That's a really important one. So he's been a huge mentor for me. Lydia, definitely, among many other wonderful conductors that I've worked with and had just the greatest pleasure. And a few directors, I wouldn't call them necessarily conductors, but like Monica Huggett, for instance, in Portland, and Ivars Torrens and David Follis, they do conduct, but they direct more. It's not that they lack ability to conduct, it's just how they rehearse is more directing, which is a different sort of embodiment of that. So I've worked with Bruce Dickey, and I've worked with a few people who really, Richard Egar, these are the people that direct, and I really enjoy that as well, because it involves a bit more of a level of involvement from their singers as well, and that's something that I like to do as well. I like to try to get them to have ideas, to tell me what it is that they're looking to do as well, because sometimes they have better ideas than I do, or it's going to meld really well and you're going to get something that's truly exciting. And I had a mentor in my 10 years between my master's degree and when I started my doctorate, who was a high school principal, who I started directing the original Kids Summer Camp in London. I worked at it for a few years, and then I directed it. And this woman was the chair of the board of directors of the overarching theater company. And I owe her an awful lot as far as leadership skills, and especially dealing with people in a leadership role. She taught me an awful lot about building a team, and that is a really interesting thing that you can take, of course, anywhere. You can take that as a choir director, you can take that right into building a choir, you can take that into building a team like I maybe did at St. James, you can take that into academia and building as far as I can do in my interim role as dean, and calling on the people who have more to say about a certain skill set than I do. So who are smarter, who are better at something than I am, and I go to them for that, and then gather all the information and facilitate something exciting, and maybe a new program or something that's forward-looking and moving the university sort of forward. So Karen Dean was her name, I will never forget those lessons. Those were just excellent lessons, and they came from her many, many years as vice principal and principals of, and then I think she worked in the superintendent's office for a little while too, for education. And she knew how to talk to people, and it was such a great learning experience.
That's incredible. So, talking about mentors, we've had incredible leadership in the Pro Musica family from the very get-go. And I'm going to name some names here of the conductors, and I'd love for you to share an anecdote or two about these people. So the founding conductor, John Barron.
Yeah, John conducted a mobile, and I was in a mobile. My friend Julie decided that I should be in the choir, and because I sang alto too and could hit all of the low notes, so she was like, "You're in a mobile." When I came to London, and I was like, "I don't know what this is, but okay." So I joined the choir, and John, another amazing mentor. Just what an incredible conductor. What an incredible man, a musician, a lovely, lovely person. And boy, we got along so well. He came to see me when I was conducting my church choir. He came up. He knew a couple of my choristers in the United Church in New Hamburg. Came to see me for a rehearsal. Visited for a while. We kept in close touch, and I was really moved to sing at his funeral service as well after he died. But just, what an amazing person. And no wonder he built the beginnings of this. You know, it makes a lot of sense.
It really does, doesn't it? And then on to another incomparable gentleman here, Daryl Johnson.
Yeah. DJ. DJ came in to guest conduct for the faculty music singers at Western in my last year singing with them, which I think would have been my third year in my bachelor's degree. And, we had good conductors, and I don't need to disparage anybody, but DJ walked in the room and everything changed. Just ginormous Texan. And I don't think he ever raised his voice, ever. And he got such a sound from the choir, and he would move people around. He would voice blend and color blend and stuff like that. He's phenomenal, and his book is really excellent, actually, on that topic. And he conducted the last year of my youth choir, my Ontario youth choir experience in 1995, and that was just a load. In fact, I was in the very front row when, on a very exciting chord, he gave a really big gesture and his cummerbund popped off, hit the music stand, and swirled around the leg of the music stand until it hit the bottom. And I didn't sing another note for 2 pieces. Tears just streaming down my face. And just when I thought I was okay, Vicki Meredith was sitting in the very front row. She was assistant conducting that year. And she was sitting in the front row, and she would just fall down and start laughing again, and then that would be it for another. We bought him a new cummerbund and tie set the next day.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that story. I was going to ask you to share that one. In fact, that front row was Vicki St. Pierre, Julie Barron, Marcus Howard. We were all 3 side by side there. I think that's a really interesting connection.
Uh-huh.
Well, then we move on to Howard Dick.
And Howard I got a chance to work with as a conductor on something, some big orchestra and singing thing, and he's a lovely fellow. He's given so many young Canadian singers their start as he was conducting the Kitchener Grand Phil, and his radio show, actually, it was the Saturday afternoon at the Opera.
Yep, and concert as well.
And choral concert. Those were staples in my listening during my undergrad and my master's degree, for sure. And having him sit in at concerts now, so in the last, about 5 years or so, I did a number of concerts in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and he comes and supports people and comes up and says really significant things, as opposed to great job and then leaving. He says really interesting things about the things he's noticed about the production, and specifically something that you did that was normally good. I'm sure he doesn't just walk up and say, "Hey, you sucked." So that's helpful.
Yeah, it's true. Some people may not know that in 1996, you and I were in National Youth Choir together, conducted by Robert Cooper. I did an interview for this same series, Vicki, with Robert on Saturday morning. And I was telling Robert that after the interview was done, that I have a picture of us sitting in the Sunday morning broadcast of the National Youth Choir concert from 1996 in Quebec City that Howard Dick was hosting.
Yeah.
John Barron is in this picture. Ken
Yeah.
Fleet is in this picture. Bob Cooper, who had a strong connection to Pro Musica in the early days, was in this picture. You, Julie Barron, myself. It's just it was just one of my favorite mementos of all time. And,
You have to scan that and send that to me because that's an incredible picture.
yeah,
Wow.
means a lot to me. Means a lot to me.
I love it.
Man, did you know Brian Jackson at all?
Brian Jackson, yes. Yeah, I do. And Brian conducted the Pops for the London, what were they called at some point? Before they were in their earlier days. I should know, but I don't. Actually, Brian and, oh no, I'm not going to remember her name. A friend of his in London composed musicals. And she would write the text, and he would write the music. And I was called often during the late part of my bachelor's degree into my master's degree to sing all these contralto roles. And Ryan would sit at the piano and play, and then he would look at me and go, "Does that sound like any other musical song that you've ever heard? Because I have them all here, and I don't know if that one is, and well, that one sounds a little bit like, or," so those were really funny times, and he can play anything, and he can play it in any key. He'd start it in a soprano key, and I'd look at him and say, "Hello." I can't sing that. And he'd drop it a fourth, and then it would be fine. He was just incredible, and a very good conductor. And so excited about the music that spoke to people in the ways, when people want to go to a Pops concert, he loved it. He wasn't phoning it in. He loved conducting that stuff. And he was just fabulous at it.
That's incredible. Vicki, as you answer the next question, I'm going to casually stand up and turn the light on my deck on. It may attract bugs, and if you hear screaming, I apologize for that.
That's quite all right.
In the past year, we lost another giant, Ken Fleet. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you'd be able to share some thoughts on your time with Ken.
Absolutely. In my undergrad, I don't remember how the relationship started, but I think probably through Amabile, and Ken asked me to come and sort of ring for his Medway choir, which of course he developed into this epic choral nation that like every kid in that school was in one of the choirs at Medway High. It was phenomenal. And from there, we just sort of developed a really lovely relationship, and I taught his daughter, Becky, voice lessons, and sent Becky off to University of Windsor for a degree. And we all just, we just became, I don't want to say like family, but certainly much closer through those times. And I had definitely seen, of course, Pro Musica under his direction, and he attended a church that I was a soloist at, he and his family, and so there are so many ties to the Fleet family for me, and taking over as he was at London Pro Musical, as he was beginning to experience many more symptoms of the Alzheimer's that would eventually take him. That was tough, and so many people really grieved the loss of Ken, the conductor, but he was able to work with the choir for Alzheimer's. He had a choir of he's right a bit almost until the very end was still involved in music, and it was still there, and that's really something to celebrate. And I was conducting the Ontario Youth Choir camp in 2019 when we got word that he died, and it was a rough day, but it was such a moving concert to have people come up on the stage and sing Temps de Vivre, and we all just sort of felt it there, right? And Daryl spoke beautifully, because Daryl Edwards and Diane Edwards are very, very dear friends of Ken and Janet. So he spoke beautifully and eloquently, and I tried to stay off stage and tried to hear as little as possible so that I could go on stage not a weeping and destroyed mess as we sang the second half of the concert. But so a big loss in the choral community. I mean, people come and people go, but when somebody has touched so many choral musicians and been the foundation for so many incredible music teachers and choral conductors and just people who give with music, that's Ken. That's Ken as the catalyst for those things. So yeah, Ken Fleet.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything, a common trait amongst the conductors we've spoken about that you think is either typifies the Pro Musica spirit or yeah, can you elaborate upon that?
I think I'm the one that sticks out in this, that as the person who doesn't do this, and that's okay. I have other things. But it's the devotion to picking repertoire that is relevant, that is some new, that is thematic, that is going to move the choir forward. It's that's been through everyone, I would say, except me. And it's not that I don't enjoy choosing repertoire. It's not my favorite thing. My favorite thing is developing the voices. So that's where my focus was. And the repertoire came and I chose my own, and I have no trouble doing that. But I have never met anybody that retains repertoire like you do. I have never met anybody who listens to things and says, yeah, my choir can do that on first pass, or that's going to be a huge challenge, and I think that that's going to really drive us forward and move us toward a better sound. Or I don't know anybody who knows repertoire. I don't know any choral conductor that I've ever met that knows repertoire better than you do. And your predecessors in Pro Musica also got it. They commissioned all sorts of works, and they worked with all sorts of different groups. They had really interesting combination of people doing things, and that is actually a real calling card of Pro Musica. And I'm really glad that it's back in those hands again, to be perfectly honest.
That's great. Vicki, I'm just a little drama queen here. There is a raccoon looking at me on the deck. And so I think I'm going to take my wine and my computer and go inside. I'm going to put myself on mute and turn off my camera, but I'm going to ask you a question and ask you to keep talking, because I don't know how to restart once we stop this recording.
Gotcha.
And we'll call it the intermission right now.
I love it.
We talked about the conductors, many of the conductors. We still have a couple more we haven't touched on from the last couple of years. But what is the significance, what has been the importance of having a choir like Pro Musica as a jewel of the crown in the London choral scene for 50 years? What legacy is this choir leaving?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Pro Musica is a pretty fantastic and unique group. Being an auditioned community choir is a really special thing. The level at which people are willing to put the work in is something that you don't see in too many choirs. And often that's driven by the director and getting things moving and inspiring people to want to do that. But Pro Musica sort of comes with that already ingrained. And having auditions every couple of years or so really instills that desire to continue to be better, to maybe take the occasional voice lesson, or to work on your sight reading, or to do those things that make you a better musician. And with that comes the desire to perform well, and to perform with groups, and to do diverse things. And that lends itself to wonderful collaborations. And the more collaborations you do and the more repertoire you learn, the more you want to learn and the more you want to create with other people. And, we all have those pieces where we open up the piece and we think, oh God, this one. But it's so rare. It's only like maybe one in a handful of music that you have that an individual might not like it. But it's very rarely a collective that doesn't like it. So there's such an interesting, diverse programming element that comes sort of implicit within the Pro Musica family that you can do a concert of, again, one of my very first concert was of Spanish music and South American music. And then the next one we did was a gospel concert. And the one after that was, I don't even know what it was, organ music or, something like that. So the desire to do different things with different people, all at a high level, and all trying to achieve a certain level of difficulty. And the pride that goes with the work that goes into that, I think, is something that is not present in a lot of choirs. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because there needs to be a place where people who want to sing but don't want to put a whole lot of work in, just want to get together and make harmonies with other people. There needs to be room for that and space for that too. And there needs to be space for people who want to work at a high level but don't necessarily have the musical skills and need to build up to that. There needs to be space for people who are challenged and who want to just get together and do something with other people. There needs to be space for that. And I think the space that London Pro Musica takes is the one that is the auditioned, we want to be better, we're going to work at our sight reading, we're going to work at our musical skills, we're going to audition every couple of years, and we're going to push for hard repertoire and for tough collaborations that make us think and make us sing better and make us work better.
That's incredible. Thank you. I want to go back to Dr. Edwards actually for a second. He posted something, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, on Facebook. And I'm going to misquote this meme here, but the meme was talking about not just acknowledging the mentors that are older than you, but the mentors that are younger than you.
Yep.
Do you have anyone in your life who is perhaps younger than you that you glean information off of, that you're inspired by? And then I'll go to part two of that question. Are there any young up-and-coming conductors that you know of that you were impressed by these days?
Mm-hmm. So the first thing is I teach at a university. And not only do I teach at a university, I teach at the #1, again, for the 22nd year, #1 undergraduate university in Canada. The reason I say that is not just to sound puffy, but moreover to say the incoming average for these students is somewhere in the vicinity of 87% from high school. Like it's mind-blowing how smart some of these kids are, and the overall attitude in classes. You don't have people missing classes. You don't have, not in my music classes anyway. I mean, I'm sure there are some across campus that have a few people that are like, yeah, I think I'll sleep today. But like they just don't. And then when they come, they're engaged. We have these teaching triangles where we go to another teacher's class, not this year, but we go to another teacher's class and observe, and then we get together as teachers and share what we learned about teaching from those other people. Sometimes those are people who are younger than I and older than I. It doesn't matter to me which way that goes. But the students are so engaged, whether there's somebody observing them or not, it's the same thing. And these other teachers who come to my class, because my class is a bunch of singers usually, it's very loud until I say, okay, we're starting. And of course, they're musicians. So everything goes immediately silent. Books come out, computers come out, phones go away, and they're ready. And the teachers at the back of the class, each time it's wonderful because their faces are like, what's happening right now? And it's incredible, and they teach me every day. The questions that they ask, the feedback I get in lessons, those all help to make me a better teacher and often a better colleague when I'm singing. And as I mentioned before, when I work with younger colleagues, you look at their enthusiasm and you listen to the education that they've just come out, so they know so much, right? But they're also quite aware that experience is also a really important thing. So there's a lot of back and forth, and it's a really interesting dynamic. And then up-and-coming conductors. The one that pops immediately to mind is Kathleen Allen, who is conducting the Amadeus Choir now, right? Yeah. I worked with her for the first time. I'd seen her, I'd heard her out in Vancouver. And I worked with her on a gig that was put together by Early Music Vancouver. It was a tour where the Pacific Baroque Orchestra, we did a tour to Manitoba, and 4 soloists were Tracy Dahl, nothing to sneeze at there, me, Tyler Duncan, nothing to sneeze at there, and an American tenor, Dan Copewell, I think. And the conducting was excellent, excellent. And she knew when to leave us alone, the soloists, and when to say something. She knew, she struck a beautiful balance. Listening to her work with the choir was really something. She's got the right language. She's got great ears, and they want to sing well for her. So they'll do whatever she asks, and when she asks them to do something, it's always better. So it was a really, really cool tour, and we did Bach, we did Christmas Oratorio, parts of the Christmas Oratorio. And I hadn't worked with Tracy before. I never thought I would work with her because she's an opera star, right? And I've only done a little bit of early opera, and that's about it. I'm mostly a concert singer, and I thought to myself, oh, you know, who knows if she can sing Bach? And I wasn't being nasty. I was just waiting to see what was going to come out of her face, right? So the first thing we start with is the quartet at the dee da 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 dee da da da, and she starts, and I'm standing beside her. She's not even 5 feet tall, so I'm towering over her, this massive contralto, and she opens up and sings the A, and I just sort of went, What just came out of your face? It was incredible. That woman still has all the chops, and she could sing Bach. She was so musical, and we had a riot. It was a really great tour, and Kathleen was a wonderful leader. I would work with her anytime, any place.
Amazing. Well,
yep.
She's doing some fantastic work during a really difficult first year with the end of the choir. So we're wishing her well and all of her choristers, but they are a lucky group, aren't they? Yeah. So
big time.
Before we wrap things up and do a little bit of fun chat, I just wanted to reference 2 other people who have been on the podium with Pro Musica. Do you have any thoughts about our friend Charlene Pauls?
Oh, God. Sure. So I have an embarrassing story for me. Charlene started her doctorate after I started mine and finished it before I finished mine. So I kind of hate her a little bit, but I'm also a great admirer of Charlene Pauls. And we've sung together at several concerts, and she's a wonderful soprano and a wonderful colleague, and she's an excellent conductor, and she's taken over the Guelph group, right? Yeah, the Guelph Chamber Choir, and I'm sure that'll go swimmingly as well. She's a lovely human being. I was doing a vocal festival, actually like this time last year, maybe November of last year. And after all of the vocal classes were over, so that she had no more students in it, obviously, you have to be quite careful of these type of things. She and David invited me over for a lovely dinner, and we shot the shit for for hours and hours and hours. She is a lovely, lovely human being, and a very fine conductor.
Obviously, our time, we kind of passed in the night, she and I, in London, but now that she's in Guelph, both her organization and the Guelph Youth Singers are working closely. We're all in anniversary season with the Guelph Chamber Choir's 40th anniversary, Guelph Youth Singers' 30th anniversary, and now Propublica's 50th. So it's a busy year for me.
Yeah, I bet.
Fantastic. And I know this might be a little strange for me to ask you this, but we also had the wonderful Rod Cullum, who's been on the podium, helping you, helping me. Can you share some of your thoughts about Rod?
I've known Rod not quite as long as I've known you. Maybe 25 years or so. And in that time, he's become one of my closest friends. He's so warm and giving, so giving, and such a musician. He can play so beautifully, plays the piano so beautifully. He arranges gorgeously. He conducts. He's like Ken. He influenced so many choral singers and musicians as a secondary school teacher he was out in Park Hill. Just so many students that still see him today and gush over what he did for them. His kindness and his just loving attitude toward all of his students. I went and I think I was a ringer for some anniversary celebration where people came back to sing, some alumni came back to sing in this, and he said, "Can you please just come and help with that?" They didn't need me. They didn't need me. What they had learned from Rod and what they had continued doing through, because they get inspired by people like this, right? So, you say to Rod, "Do you think you can lead such and such a rehearsal?" Yep, is his first answer. It's not, "Well, what are you singing or what are you playing? And I'm not sure if I'm," he's just, "Yep." And then he says, "Okay, but how do I do that?" But he listens, and he's such a giving, kind human soul. I love him to death.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. I have a really tight group of close friends, many of whom you know, and you're obviously a part of that. But when I came to London, Rod was one of the people who was right up front welcoming me in a way that I was very confused by because it was so generous and so kind and as if we'd been friends for 20, 25 years. And
Yep.
it took me a while to understand. I mean, I knew he was amazing from the moment I met him, but to feel
Yep.
comfortable with such grace and generosity,
Yep.
it's been the biggest blessing for me with my time with Pro Musica, not just Rod, but a number of the members have really
Yep.
been so kind and he's,
That's his gift.
yeah, it really,
Yep.
yeah, one of his many gifts.
Absolutely.
Just kind of wrapping things up here because I got to go make sure that the raccoon's gone. Rod will know that I have a whole history with skunks that I could tell you about sometime. So the raccoon thing is maybe it's growth. I don't know. Vicki, I want to know what television you may have been watching during your bunker down days during COVID. Anything interesting?
Well, I mean, nothing that's terribly exciting because I don't like scary movies. I'm not a big fan yeah, no, I can't do it. Can't do it. I'm terrified of them, and then I don't sleep, and I like for days, and it just disturbs me in horrible ways. And so I'm a big wuss, and I do not watch those. I don't like rom-coms. I don't like, stories that are really gritty and real because look what we're living in. Like, I don't want that. So I like fantasy and take me away from this world kind of stuff. So I've been watching all this sort of superhero-y spin-off type things. I watched, what else did I watch that was, boy, I don't even know anymore. I'm looking forward to the new Star Trek coming out very soon. I'm excited about that. That's going to be great. I like, what else have I watched? The Boys. That's a little gruesome for me, but yeah, but it's still pretty great.
And it's fun to see Toronto in the background.
It is. It's really neat. I really do enjoy that part. Yeah. What are we watching right now?
Into the conversation. What a new beer that you're drinking or your favorite beer of the moment?
We have a lot of craft breweries in New Brunswick. So there are an awful lot. There was a craft brewery up in Edmundston called Petit Saut, falls, waterfalls. And they had a beer called Louis the 14th or 16th or one of the Louis. And it was a nice beer. And they're not selling it in my liquor store nearby anymore. My very favorite is a Belgian beer called Grimbergen. And my standby, always good, is what I'm drinking right now, which is Barking Squirrel. Barking Squirrel.
I've enjoyed many a barking squirrel with you at Say What in Toronto. Yeah, absolutely. Is there a dream destination you would love to whisk Aaron away on for a 2-week vacation? No expenses, not an issue. Where would your dream vacation be?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, COVID notwithstanding, we keep talking about doing a sort of Mozart type tour. So doing a Salzburg, Vienna, Prague kind of thing. So that's a possibility. We loved our time in Cuba last Christmas. It was magnificent, and it was so nice. I was memorizing Handel by the pool, but it was still really, really nice. I'm sure people walked by me and were like, "What's going on there?" As I'm
The number of vacations where I've had a script or a score or something, and people just don't get it. So, or on a plane. I love people on planes when they're pretending they're not thinking. I'm like,
yes.
what's that all about?
So, do you do music?
Let's
Or do you, or my favorite is, oh, so you sing opera? And I'm like, well, I mean, kinda, sure. Yeah, we'll go with that. So, like, Phantom of the Opera? Yeah, sure. Yep. I'm going to put my earphones in now. Got to listen to Phantom for a moment. Yeah.
I was doing a camp once, a music theater camp, and I was there as the choreographer. And a lot of people in pro musical probably don't know this about me. I used to dance professionally, and I still choreograph professionally. And because it was a short camp, the kids weren't, grasping the choreography in 5 days. As often happens in dance recitals, the dance teacher comes up and dances along the side.
Uh-huh.
So at the end of the show, one of the parents came up to me and she said, "Oh, you're a wonderful dancer. You should probably take some lessons." So,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I will. I will take some lessons. Thanks for your expertise.
Dream role, dream score that you haven't yet sung.
Ooh. Uh, huh. Probably some of the solo Bach solo alto cantatas. There are a couple that I haven't done yet. So, I mean, those are pretty great.
Can you list those and then send me your schedule?
I sure can. Make note of that. Yeah.
I'm going to wrap this up now, and just know that I wish we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but I think people are probably trying to get to their turkey and to their
Fair enough.
There right now and stuff. This has been a joy for me, and I was a little nervous because as far back as our friendship goes, I just feel like there's just so much more that I learn about you every single time I spend with you, and never want to disappoint Miss Vicki. I think you're such a special person to me here. So.
And you to me, and I can't think of a better person to be in front of a choir that I hold very, very dear to my heart. They are in incredibly good hands, and I'm so excited that you're going to, and post-COVID, that you're going to take them on a journey that they're going to really, really enjoy. That's what you do, and I can't think of a better person to do it.
Thank you. I'm excited for that as well. So I think that kind of leads perfectly into my last question here. The world's in a really strange place right now, and I think more than at any time we're seeing the value of the arts and what happens when the arts are taken away. What do you think a choir like Pro Musica needs to be doing when the quarantines are being lifted and we're able to come back together again? Does our role change, or do we continue doing what we're already doing?
I think that what we're seeing is people's effort to make it as close to being in person and doing what we were doing before as possible. Many of them, I think, err sometimes in caution. Like they aren't cautious enough. And but we see these virtual choirs, and that's all. It's all great as a stopgap measure. I have feelings about all of them, but whatever people need to be doing to replicate some kind of feeling like that. But there will be, I don't know if people are going to be able to get through the first phrase of singing together in a room without weeping. The thought of it right now has just filled my eyes with tears. That moment where we're together again in a room without masks, close, so that the sound can blend, so that we can create that special thing. I don't think anything needs to change at that point as far as just being that and doing that and making that community. And then where you go from there it can be a pivoted direction depending on who you have in your choir and your membership, but it's not about that to me. It's about the moment that we get back together in person, and it's going to be breathtaking. Can you imagine the very first and the glory of the Lord? Can you imagine the first notes of, Elijah? Can you imagine the first notes of the Christmas oratorio? They're gonna start singing "Jauchzet frohlock," and everyone's just gonna die. It's just gonna be explosions of tears everywhere, and that's what we're missing right now. And that's what's going to be the most glorious thing ever. Is that when we return?
And I'm a crybaby at the best of times.
Yeah.
I love you. I look up to you. I miss you dearly.
I miss you so, so much.
Your mark has been left on Pro Musica, and I endeavor to live up to your standards every time I stand in front of that fantastic group of people. So thank you for the gifts that you share with all of the people that you come in contact with your students, with your friends and colleagues. And I wish you nothing but the best. And collectively, you and I think, want to wish a happy Thanksgiving and a 50th anniversary to Pro Musica. Maybe a parting word to our friends here.
Happy anniversary. It's such a special anniversary. You should be so proud of the legacy that you've created in London. And a very happy Thanksgiving. And though we're in the middle of a pretty crappy time, you have a lot to be thankful for in the gift of Pro Musica and in the gift that's going to come back when we are able to sing together again. And you have something to be thankful for as well in the gift of Marcus and of Grace as another one of your leaders, and of Nancy as chair of the board, of so many people, of Rod for helping, of all of those people in Pro Musica who just give and give and give, and we have so much to be thankful for, and we will sing again. We will sing again.
Thank you so much. Love you very much.
Love you too.
Thanks.
Bye, Marcus.
Bye.